Hello everyone, welcome to today's class. This is class 2 from Chain Research Organization and Consultancy with me, Taonga Funisha Zimba, who's your course coordinator. Just a recap of our last class. We looked at monitoring and evaluation, those two terms, and explained them in detail. So today in our class we are going further to look at the monitoring and evaluation frameworks, or the M&E frameworks. So what is a framework? So a framework is simply a structure, a skeleton, what makes up something. Okay, so in this lecture we're going to define what monitoring and evaluations are, identify the different we're going to identify and differentiate between 3 different types of frameworks, explain how frameworks are used for monitoring and evaluation and project management, design project monitoring and evaluation frameworks using any of the above frameworks that we're going to talk about. So firstly, like I said, what is a framework? So a framework is simply makeup of something, right? The structure of something, the skeleton or the basis of something, just like the human skeleton. It's the structure of a human being, what makes up the human body, yeah, so to say. So a framework is a basic conceptual structure used to solve or address complex issues, in this case an M&E framework. A framework can also be said to be used to outline possible causes of action or to present a preferred approach to an idea or a thought. So by definition, an M&E framework is a key part of the M&E plan that depicts the project's or program's goals, objectives, outcomes, outputs, processes, and inputs. Remember, in our first lecture I gave a brief definitions of these terms. The outcome, the output, the processes or activity. Processes can also be called activities, and the inputs. Yeah. If you have forgotten, please go through the first class, the notes from our first class. This was explained. So the M&E framework, let me just say that again. The M&E framework is a key part of the monitoring and evaluation plan that depicts the project's or program's goals, objectives, outcomes, outputs, processes, and inputs, as well as indicators that will be used to measure success or failure. So simply put, every program or project, so program and projects is going to be used interchangeably, because a program is also called a project. If you have a project, it's also called a program. Sorry. So every program has got a goal. A goal is what you want to attain at the end of everything else, what your focus is, what we want to achieve. Objectives, these are what we are going to do for us to achieve that, right? Yes. What some breakdown of what we want to achieve for us to reach our goal. What should we achieve for us to reach our goal? Those are objectives. There are outcomes also. Outcomes are simply mid-term or not very long-term results. Yes, like mid-term results that not immediate results, so to say. So last time I think I used an example of a plant. It should be a lemon plant. Yes. So our outcome that I gave as an example was to see the leaves come out of the plant. Okay. There are also outputs, which are immediate results. Processes, these are things or activities that we're going to put in place for us to achieve our goal. Activities can be watering the lemon plant. Activities can be aerating the lemon plant once we plant it. Activities can be also just setting the plant on the sunlight every day and putting it back on the shade. Those are activities, okay, that we are going to do in order to attain our goal. Yeah, there are also inputs. I think I said the plant seed, the soil. Those are the things that we use in the initial process, in the initial stage, of the program. Those are inputs. Yeah, so the framework is a key part of the M&E plan that depicts the program's goals, objectives, outcomes, outputs, processes, and inputs, as well as indicators. So all these things I've mentioned are depicted in the monitoring and evaluation frameworks. Okay, so these are used to measure success or failure. So the framework also defines the relationship between factors key to implementation, and also spells out internal and external factors that would affect the program's success. So M&E framework create a clear linkage between the program or the project goals and objectives. Clearly, they also clarify the relationship between programs or projects, inputs, processes, outputs, as well as outcomes and impacts. They show internal and external factors that can have effect on the program's achievement of results. So sometimes you can have a project, okay, you've planned it out and all that, and there's some external factors or internal factors that can affect the success of this program or the achievement of the results. So some of them, I'll give just an example of, let's say you set out a program, but because of the coronavirus, you are unable to go out to the field to collect data because everyone is on lockdown, and you really can't have access to people's homes because maybe they won't allow you to enter their houses because of the coronavirus, So those are some of the external factors. Internal factors can be maybe lack of stakeholder collaboration in a way of exchanging data. Sometimes you set out a project and think, okay, we're going to collect data from this. Let me just give an example of a project with the Ministry of Health. They want to know how many schools have been built in all the districts as a result of the CDF, Constitutional Development Fund. But then they go to this district and they are facing some challenges in getting the data because maybe the money was not distributed evenly in terms of education. So those are some internal factors that might come as a result of a program to affect the achievements of program goals. Yeah, so M&E framework provide a platform for the implementation of M&E plans. Because of an M&E framework, you can see how you're going to implement the M&E plan. So an M&E framework is a part of the M&E plan. The M&E plan is more like a bigger component in M&E, and then the M&E framework is just a subset of the M&E plan. Okay, I hope that's clear. So there are 4 main types of monitoring and evaluation frameworks. There are logic models, conceptual frameworks, results framework, as well as logical frameworks. Okay, those are the 4 types. So the conceptual frameworks are also known as the research or theoretical frameworks. That's the other name. It's also called research framework or theoretical framework. It is a written or visual presentation that explains either graphically or in a narrative form the main things to be studied, key factors, concepts and variables, and the supposed relationship among them. Okay. It is usually a diagram that shows shows where the program fits into the wider context. It also clarifies assumption about causal relationship in a program. So causal relationship simply means this causes this, this causes that. Okay, an example. We'll go back to our lemon plant, our lemon tree. So we'll start with the result, which is the lemon fruit. So what causes the lemon fruit to come? Constant watering of the lemon tree. Also, what causes the lemon fruit to come? If the lemon tree is exposed to sunlight, is also exposed to aerating, all those things are what causes the lemon tree. So just this thing I'm from explaining can be called a conceptual framework, because this concept leads to this, this concept leads to this. So there's a diagram that's just under here. It shows us the structure of the conceptual framework. Yeah, it just shows the causal pathway. So we've seen that here all the arrows are pointing to depression of the and depression is the dependent variable. Okay, so the dependent variable is that variable which is caused by other factors. Okay, so in the example of our lemon tree, the dependent variable there was the lemon tree, like the plant producing the lemon tree. So that is as a result of other factors. So the lemon tree being there is a dependent. The lemon tree is a dependent variable. The lemon, sorry, not the lemon tree. The lemon is a dependent variable, the one that depends on other things, right? So these other things are the sunlight, the water, all those things. So those other things are called independent variables because they're independent, but the lemon is dependent because for it to come out, it requires other things to come into play, which are the sunlight, the water, the fertilizer, the manure, everything else that make up the lemon. Okay, so in this example, the dependent variable is depression. I'm sure we all know what depression is. So stress is an independent variable. If somebody is stressed, it can lead to depression. The sleep disorder, which is another independent variable, sleep disorder can also lead to what? To depression. So depression is dependent on sleep disorder. These are one of the factors that cause depression. Also, troubled adolescents. Troubled adolescents, know how adolescents might have different issues. I'm sure we all know what adolescents are. Yeah, these are usually teenagers. Yeah, so adolescents that are troubled, it can result into what? Depression. So these are some of the causal relationships that a conceptual framework shows. So it's the simplest form of conceptual framework. Some conceptual frameworks also have other arrows attached to them. Okay, so this is the simplest form of conceptual framework. So just imagine a dependent variable, right? Imagine about anything, or let's even bring it down to our own load shedding that we're experiencing at the moment. So let's say load shedding is our dependent variable. So there are several factors that need to come into play for us to have load shedding. So one can be, cutting down of trees, meaning deforestation, because we don't have enough trees. I'm sure we all understand how the trees come into play in the ecosystem and how they bring about the rainfall and all that. So deforestation can lead to what? Can lead to lack of rains. The lack of rains can lead to what? Load shedding. So that's just another example that I'm giving, just so you can have an idea of what a conceptual framework means. It just shows the causal relationship. So I think it's the simplest framework that is there in research. Yeah, the theoretical framework, the research framework, or the conceptual framework. So this is another example. So A plus B equals C. So let's say A was deforestation, B was no rains because of deforestation. So no rains, so deforestation plus no rains give us what? Load shedding. This is another example of a conceptual framework. Sometimes it can be A plus B plus C equals D. You know, several factors come into play for us to have a certain result. Another example there we have is customer satisfaction. I'm sure we've all been customers somewhere, maybe in a shop, in a bank, anywhere where customers go. So customer satisfaction, here they are talking about food taste. So I believe this can be a restaurant. Yes. So the taste of the food, the speed of the service, as well as staff performance. Okay, staff performance can be how the staff are talking to you, how the staff are, you know, welcoming you as you walk in. So that's their performance. Speed of service, how fast your food is going to be prepared. Are you going to wait for 1 hour before your food is served? Also the taste of the food. This food, is it good? I don't like the taste. Oh, this food is really good. I'll come here. So that all these factors play a role in customer satisfaction. So customer satisfaction depends on these independent variables, which are food taste, speed of service, staff performance. And by the way, these are not the only factors that determine customer satisfaction. There might be more. These are just examples. Okay, so here is another example of a more complicated framework. As you can see here, there are outcomes, immediate causes, underlying causes at household family level, basic causes at society level. So they are all pointing at child malnutrition, death, and disability. Okay, so the source of this is the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, 1998. So basic causes. So I'm going down, okay, because we have to look at what is the root cause of this problem. Okay, let's remember that the conceptual framework shows a causal relationship. Causal relationship means this causes this, this causes this. So here down there is environmental, technical, and people. Okay, so there is the environment can lead to child malnutrition, environment, technology, as well as people. So these come into play. I know you don't really understand what I mean by this, but let's go to the next circle, or the next stage. Both of these are still at basic. So it's basic causes at society level, in a society. So there is quantity and quality of actual resources. Resources can be money, so that's human, economic. So human resource, economic. So human resource can be maybe medical people, you know. So the quality and quantity. Maybe the medical people that are there, they're not really trained, you know, to handle such cases of malnutrition or death or disability. There's also human. Human can be, yeah, the human resource, what I'm from saying. There's also economic. People do not have the resources, you know, to buy economic and organizational. People do not have resources or money to buy the intended food or medication that people need in order to avoid this child malnutrition, death, or disability. you know, and the way they are controlled, the way these are controlled. So we go to the next stage, which is the underlying causes at household or family level. So there's insufficient access to food, because here we say that people do not have, you know, the resources, the economic and organizational resources. They do not have the resources. So there's insufficient food, okay, access to food at household level, which is here household or family level. So there's insufficient access to food. You know how malnutrition is. If people or children are not getting the right quantities of food, the right diet, okay, there's a deficiency in their diet, it brings about malnutrition, which is poor feeding, bad nutrition, so to say. There's also inadequate maternal and child care practices. So here, remember, we talked about how we do not have enough people qualified, or the people that are there and are not enough, you know, to attend to everyone, or they are not qualified. So this causes inadequate maternal and child care practices, because people do not know how to deal with these issues, because people are less. We do not have the nurses. They are very few. So there's inadequate. Inadequate simply means not enough. Insufficient maternal and child care practices. There's also poor water sanitation and inadequate health services. So poor water sanitation and inadequate health services, because we do not have resources. We do not have the manpower in these facilities. So even our water and sanitation, inadequate health services will be compromised. So all these come into play. So as a result of these three factors, there is disease that we see. Okay. There's also inadequate dietary intake, which leads to child malnutrition. So if there's inadequate dietary intake, it will simply lead to what? Child malnutrition. Sometimes death. And sometimes, because children are not getting the intended nutrients in their body, there will be disability. Some people are disabled, are blind, because they just did not have the necessary nutrients while growing up. It also leads to disease. Disease in turn leads to what? Child malnutrition. You see how all these have come into play. All these have come into play just for us to have this. So in short, this causes this, this causes this, this causes this, and this causes this. I hope that's clear. So this is a more complex conceptual framework, or theoretical framework, or research framework. One and the same thing. Okay, so here's a task for you. Yes. So I think in my introduction I mentioned to say we are going to be using 2 days in a week for classes and 1 day for an assignment. So this is your task 1, which should be ready by let me see, since we're late, should be ready by Tuesday next week. I'd like to see those people in this course, especially those that have registered for this course. I'd really like to see you formulate a conceptual framework for the HIV and AIDS. So in this case, HIV and AIDS will be your dependent variable. We want to see you come up with the independent variables that are going to come into play to cause HIV and AIDS. You can come up with as many as you want. I don't want to see 3 independent variables. No, please, let's be creative in our work. This is 5 marks. 5 marks, and it's going to your final grade. Please, let's take this serious. Let's take this seriously. Tuesday, 17 hours, you can submit this. I'll send my email address to the group. Those that don't have email addresses, feel free to use my WhatsApp number to send your assignments. Don't forget to put your full names, NRC, as well as your location. Yes, so this is what we have today. For today, I'll end on conceptual frameworks. Remember, we still have some more. This is just the first framework that we've looked at. So in our second class, we're going to go further onto the next types of frameworks: results framework, logical frameworks, logic models. So for today, let's work on our assignment, which is a conceptual framework. Thank you so much. I will see you in the next class.